Senator Risch.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to ask you, I don't usually do this, but I'm going to read you some questions that I'd like a direct yes or no answer to. And then I'll give you a chance on when we get some other questions to talk a little bit about. First of all, one of the things I want to ask you on the record, will you pledge to provide direct oversight of the Department of State's implementation of AUKUS?
Absolutely, yes.
Will you commit to pursuing a thorough investigation into the decisions made by the State Department from 2020 onwards that enabled China to subject U.S. diplomats to violations of their privileges and immunities?
Senator Risch, I will, and I must thank you. I've read the letters that you've sent carefully, and I fully intend to do so.
I appreciate that. Will you work to remove barriers to U.S. agencies supporting natural gas over Chinese coal?
I believe natural gas plays a critical role as a transitional fuel. I've worked closely with this committee and others to ensure that that is the case, particularly in the Indo-Pacific. Yes.
Thank you. Will you agree to providing this committee with a fulsome and detailed explanation of why the Biden administration did not repudiate Hong Kong Chief Executive John Lee's claim of being invited to APEC?
I can give you more background on that now, if that would be useful, Senator.
Why don't you do that as a question for the record? Could you
That's
do that
great.
for me?
I'll be happy to do that.
That'll give me a chance.
But I do want to underscore very clearly here, we made clear to both China and Hong Kong authorities that he would not be welcome in San Francisco, and indeed he would need to be sending a second, which he did. So I do want to underscore that we never intended for him to participate in the APEC.
And I appreciate your public declaration of that right here. This one I'm going to not necessarily give you a yes or no. You can talk about it, and that is given China's ongoing support for Russia in its war against Ukraine, what are your thoughts as we get to the end, and there will be an end, of discussions regarding ending the war and then on rebuilding Ukraine? And I'll give you a spoiler alert here. I don't think China ought to have any fingerprints on this whatsoever, but I appreciate hearing your thoughts on it.
Yeah. Look, Senator Risch, I have to say, in my discussions with your team, which were extensive, we had very clear discussions around this issue, and I will tell you that they represented your views clearly and unmistakably. And I don't want to say that they schooled me, but I really came away with a much deeper appreciation and I think a greater sense of what the limitations are for any kind of role that China can or would play in the future. So I just want to make clear about that. I will say personally, I'm quite troubled by China's support for Russia in its war in Ukraine. I think we can see over the course of the last year and a half or so, China has assisted through a variety of means, not necessarily direct military means, but through support through commercial and other engagements. But Russia has largely reconstituted militarily. And even though China purports to be a independent actor that has not taken sides, very clearly they have taken sides here. And that is deeply concerning to me. So one of the reasons why, and there are many reasons why we have to be so committed to Ukraine, is that authoritarians take lessons from other authoritarian experiences. And I will tell you one of the reasons why countries in the Indo-Pacific are so determined to support Ukraine is because they don't want the same thing to happen in the Indo-Pacific. So we have to be vigilant here, because this is not just about the future of Europe, which in and itself is an enormous and important concern in the United States. We have to be concerned of what lessons that China would take from us if it went badly.
Well, I appreciate that. I think that's well said. I don't think there's any question that China will try to leverage some way into this, trying to bootstrap themselves somehow in Europe. And I think we need to be vigilant in that regard. Well, my time's almost up, but I know you're on the National Security Council and get to hear about the discussions. What in the world is the administration thinking about freeing up cash to Iran? I mean, I was aghast when when the administration started with the first $6 billion, and then even worse than that, after the fighting started in Israel, they're talking about the other $10 billion. So help me understand this. I just can't square that circle. I really can't.
Yeah. Well, look, Senator, I do want to just underscore a few things. I tried to lay out clearly what, at least my view, and I think the view of the administration is on Iran's role. I do want to underscore one thing, that despite some discussions in the media and elsewhere, I don't think anyone sees that there's any chance in the current environment to go back to the JCPOA. It's just not on the table. It's not up for discussion. So just, I hope that at least provides you some assurance more.
I think that's pretty straightforward.
I agree, but it's still important to state on the record. So I will also say that the administration has not lifted any sanctions on Iran, and overall, I think the beginning of the administration, the number is about 400 that have been applied. I recognize the concerns on the $6 billion, and you've heard all the arguments more generally. The money has not been spent; it's still in an account. We have absolutely full confidence that if money were taken out of it, it would be used specifically for the needs of the Iranian people and for humanitarian concerns. But I do want to just underscore, Senator, I think we're in an environment right now where Iran is taking a role that is so antithetical to our interests that we must be even more vigilant. We must be sending a military message that provocations will be met and met with stern responses. We must isolate them diplomatically, internationally. And I just want to commit to you, I do think this is a subject that we need to have close consultations on. And we've got to work with you, not just at the end of policy deliberations, but as the chairman said, earlier in the process. So I think we share many of the strategic assessments of Iran going forward, and managing this delicate period given the conflict in Gaza between Israel and Hamas is going to be critical.
Thank you for that answer.